Mafia 3 released back in 2016, and even playing today, it still shocks me that the portrayed imagery of life back in the 60s wasn't quite as playful and vibrant as some might have you think. Instead, Mafia 3 showcases some of the shamelessly brutal bigotry and racial inequality that was rife in certain areas during the 60s. We follow the story of Lincoln Clay, a Vietnam War vet returning to his hometown to reconnect with his friends and family. The game is set in the fictional city of New Bordeaux, a reimagining of New Orleans, where thankfully Lincoln is able to avoid an irritable bowel at the hands of some dodgy Cajun catfish gumbo, but sadly Lincoln isn't able to avoid the entanglement of gang warfare due to his surrogate father Sammy Robinson being in serious debt to the fierce local mob boss Sal Marcarno. In an attempt to pay off this debt, Lincoln agrees to help Sal pull off a heist at the Federal Reserve, but although the job was a success, Sal betrays Lincoln and wipes out his family and friends, and Sal stupidly thought he'd left Lincoln for dead too. I mean, he was only shot in the head, what was he thinking? This is Lincoln goddamn Clay we're talking about here.
If I were shot in the head, I'm pretty sure everything would be fine. I almost welcome it.
So Lincoln is somehow only left with this badass scar across his head, as well as an overwhelming and insatiable thirst for revenge after the betrayal, and absolutely nothing and nobody will be getting in his way as he unleashes his inner beast's hyperbolic violent side.
Revealed who Lincoln Clay really was. A monster.
We were having the time of our lives when we started. Everything was groovy. Lately we've been half-hearted. West Side Story, don't be afraid anymore.
I'm playing the definitive edition of the game, which received the tiniest of tiny makeovers on top of the original 2016 version. I need to be honest and tell you guys I've slapped my own reshade over Mafia 3 because, as you can see here, it makes a fair bit of difference. The definitive edition still doesn't alleviate some of the glaring visual eyesores, sadly. At times you could be wandering New Bordeaux and thinking, you know what, this looks pretty nice actually. Then blam, with no warning or any steady transition, it's sunrise time, and if you're unfortunate enough to be driving down a wet road when that glare catches the road's surface, then no reshade in the world can save your retinas from being melted. I'm not sure why Hangar 13 opted for these post-processing effects in the game. The 1960s and the city of New Orleans is packed with vibrancy and colour, and I would have hoped that was at the forefront of the developers' thinking behind New Bordeaux. Even though the actual design and art style they've gone for looks really good, and like I said, it looks even better with a reshade, but without a reshade, I just felt sad driving around New Bordeaux and looking out of my window at this lifelessly bleak layer that's all over the city.
Is today a cloudy day, or is this pollution? It's not worth having this in HD, is it? Nothing looks crisp. Everything's sort of hazy, some sort of Kate Bush video or something.
Mechanically, I really enjoy playing the Mafia 3, both in terms of the combat and the driving mechanics, and starting with the driving mechanics, each vehicle feels really grounded, quite literally, and in terms of the speed that they travel through the city, especially compared to the fun but much more arcadey feel of a GTA 5. The sound design is awesome, with some classic muscle cars' terrifying growls, and the tyre screeches just sound so cool. Cornering is fun but difficult enough that it requires anticipation, but satisfying when licking it around a corner with precision. One thing I was gutted about was the absence of bikes. I love hopping on a bike in an open world city to fly through the traffic, so I thought they dropped the ball on that one. The enemy AI is pretty good, and I'll get onto that shortly when talking about the combat side of things, but being chased in a car was so much fun thanks to the timing based auto lock system where you could take out the trailing cop's tyres with a well timed shot, and also making good use of the Franklin style slow motion ability. You can just as easily have your own tyres taken out too, and this all made for some pretty tense car chases, and it was even fun being forced to bail out of your car and sprint down one of the city's many alleyways to evade the cops, making good use of the detailed city design. What was absolutely shocking though was the pedestrians' AI behaviour when I was driving. There was this incessant need for every goddamn NPC I drove past trying to leap in front of my car in some sort of attempted insurance scam before the so-called witness calls the cops. When it comes to combat, this is your basic third-person cover shooter with small elements of stealth sprinkled in, giving Lincoln some weird voodoo doll noise-making thing called a screaming Zemi, as well as the option to whistle to distract the enemies. I much preferred the faster-paced stealth approach though, making use of a silencer, but the full pelt head-on approach is just as rewarding. The reticle takes a little getting used to from weapon to weapon, but they all improve over time by upgrading Lincoln's abilities, as well as getting my eye in myself by simply just playing the game. There's a ton of weapons to choose from, all feeling pretty meaty and gratifying to pull their triggers. The enemies move around and try to flank Lincoln as often as possible, and their animations are really cool too, often reacting with the nearest piece of environment to die with such dramatic effect, and some of the melee animations are absolutely brutal. Whether that's Lincoln burying his hunting knife deep into an enemy's neck, or spearing the living shit out of them and stomping him face first into the concrete. But my absolute favourite though was Lincoln's ability to cast spells, turning enemies' water bottles into flaming sambucas. Eat your heart out, Jesus. All three of the Mafia games have put their narratives first and foremost, but that's not to say there's no gameplay on offer, far from it, but the stories told within the series are what really shine, and they've not disappointed in Mafia 3 either. The story is cleverly told through various flashbacks being told during interviews and court hearings, and I thought this was pretty cool. That being said, Hangar 13 definitely had enough capacity in their team to shift even more of their focus onto improving the gameplay side of things, and in some cases they've succeeded, and in others not so much. They did attempt to fluff up the open world itself, with the previous two Mafia games being full of visual stimulus but still feeling pretty empty due to there being so little to actually interact with. Mafia 3 definitely makes an attempt to rectify that by including more random NPC conversations, the ability to rob stores, having Lincoln enter whites-only shops to witness the disgusting bigots complain at his presence, which obviously resulted in them receiving a deserving swift kick in the bollocks. Then there's the ability to customise your cars as well, which was cool, and there's loads of these wiretapping mini-games which, when unlocked, give Lincoln some weird conversation to eavesdrop on, as well as exposing all the map markers on the map like the collectibles. And speaking of collectibles, there's loads of genuine 1960 memorabilia to collect, like vinyl disc album covers, hot rod magazines and Vargas paintings. But then the whole big bad image of the walking tank Lincoln Clay is kinda shattered when he shows his true colours and just how desperately horny he actually is, so much so that he'll even break into somebody's home just to steal a porn magazine.
I thought that you worked for like a service or a company that helped out guys that are so horny that their stomachs hurt, because that's what I am!
There's no service that does that!
Now, alongside this open world fluff, there's some side missions too, which are really nothing more than basic fetch quests on a loop. All this definitely adds content on paper, but it's fairly soulless content that's become all too familiar in modern day open world design. I used to be easily duped into wandering maps, making sure I've ticked off every map marker I could see, but this was merely my OCD gaming mentality, and with Mafia 3 not even having fast travel, it was pretty hard to justify ticking off all the map markers in this one. So when it comes to the main missions, the repetitive structure rears its ugly head about halfway into the campaign, which is around the 15 to 20 hour mark. So if you've never played Mafia 3 before, then there's a decent amount of content to keep you going before you'll even notice the repetitive gameplay loop complete a full loop, but once it does, you'll likely change gears to focus on the narrative aspect of Mafia 3 instead. The aim for Lincoln is pretty simple.
I'm gonna take over the city, district by district. Marcarno wanted me to run the Harlem? Fuck him. By the time I'm done, I'll be running the whole goddamn city.
And to do this, Lincoln must inflict enough financial damage on each district by taking out rackets, key individuals, and destroying whatever illegal product that district is making money from. Inflict enough damage and you'll piss off the boss of that district enough for him to show himself. Take him out and the district is yours. Along the way, Lincoln befriends certain characters who will offer him different services like a mobile gun shop, a car delivery service, the ability to pay off the cops, take out the nearby telephone lines so the enemies can't call for backup, and calling in a cash pickup service to deposit your hard-earned dollar, which you'll lose half of every time you die. These extremely helpful characters all want a piece of the action themselves, yourselves though, so it's up to you to decide who to appoint as head of each district, and your decisions will add more abilities to the services that they offer and also affect the overall ending of the game. Now I'm fortunate enough to play on PC with the 3090, so I can slap a reshade on and comfortably play above 60 FPS at 4K, but the game has still got its spotty areas for FPS drops in the city centre mainly, and the odd bug here and there, but it mostly ran smoothly for me. What really isn't good in my opinion is slapping the words Definitive Edition on the title, so you've got an excuse to include the game in the Mafia Trilogy bundle alongside the remade Mafia 1 and the remastered Mafia 2. They've not even offered a next-gen upgrade to get the game running at 60 FPS at all on PS5 or the Series X yet. It doesn't sit right with me, and the publishers 2K have clearly used the marketing buzzwords of Definitive Edition as a blatant cash-grabbing exercise.
Hey, you want the money? Is that what you want? You want money, you fucking idiots? Here, take the money. Here, go ahead. Here, go ahead. Take the fucking money. You fucking idiots. Take it. Take it. Take the fucking money. Here, take it. Is that what you want? Take the fucking money. Come here, you fucking cocksucker.
Putting all that aside though, I enjoyed playing the original back when it released on PS4 at 30 FPS, and I'm obviously going to enjoy it playing even more on a PC at a crisp 4K above 60 FPS. It's probably hard for me to recommend console players to play this one in 2022 considering the standards have changed, but PC players that have let this one slip them by, it's definitely worth your time. Oh, and a quick mention for that soundtrack in the game too. Some absolute classic 60s rock bangers being played on the radio. That's well worth cruising around just for a listen. So what do you guys think? Did you play the original on console, and if so, have your retinas recovered from the eye-bleeding sunsets? Are you crying out for a next-gen upgrade now? What did you make of the game's open world design? Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.